Alright, what is up guys? I am back with another deck profile, and this one comes to us from a good friend of mine at Hawk's Nest Gaming. His name is Aiden, and he basically helped me with this list. He is the self-appointed Mathmech expert, and we all kind of looked at him for the correct combo lines and ratios and all of that, because he's actually been playing this deck for a very long time before Circular even came out. And so as soon as Circular came out and this deck got a huge boost in power and actually became somewhat competitively relevant, a lot of people jumped on it, and he had already had the strategy all figured out. So most of this list is copied from him. Also, huge shout outs to Cameron, the co-owner of Hawk's Nest Gaming, who also plays this deck. He and I have had quite a few matches to practice with so I could learn the strategy. And it is definitely a force to be reckoned with. It is an incredibly fun mid-range combo deck. It can go really hard going first or second, which I love. It's incredibly versatile. I just had a lot of fun with it. It seems like, design-wise, it does kind of feel like a deck made several years ago, with the exception, of course, of Circular being the more modern card. But this card is just so crazy. It does so many things for the deck. Much like how Rico was with Secret Slayers, I'm really, really glad that Mathmech, all the way back from Mystic Fighters, gets to be the premier competitive deck that actually gets to see some play. I just think it's so cool that these are all cards that everybody slept on for years and they didn't really have a chance to shine, and then one broken piece of support comes out in Power of the Elements and the deck becomes relevant. And I'm just so glad that I usually always buy a box of those deck building side sets, and both Mystic Fighters and Secret Slayers were some of my favorite ones. So I'm really glad that both the Rika deck and this deck are now relevant. But let's go ahead and get into the list. So Triple Circular, obviously. This guy, a lot of the strategy is based around trying to see this guy as quickly as possible. And so that's why we do play the Small World package, is there's a lot of ways in which we can get to this guy if we don't already have him, plus Silent Mining and other cards like that. Seeing this card in your opening hand or being able to access it is incredibly important, because it can get you 2 bodies and the search for a follow-up card off of just the one card, and it doesn't even use your normal summon to do that. It is absolutely insane. So you send a Mathmech from deck to grave, it summons itself out of your hand for free, and the one you can send to grave can be Sigma, which can summon itself back, triggering his other effect to add a Mathmech spell or trap to your hand, which can be Equation if you're going second and you need another extender to revive another body and go for a OTK, or if you're going first, it could be Superfactorial, which is going to give you your follow-up on your opponent's turn and another form of interruption. So yeah, just absolutely insane card. You would never play less than 3 for obvious reasons. The last new Mathmech card we got before Circular was Diameter, all the way back in Rise of the Duelist in 2020, and that was another set that I always highly regard as, up until Power of the Elements, the best set to come out in a very, very long time, and it had a ton of legacy support for a lot of good decks, and it included Diameter. And Diameter is now finally getting a chance to shine, where he is the one card you want to normal summon in this deck, and when you do that, he revives a Mathmech out of the graveyard, and if you make a Synchro or Xyz with him, you give that monster an Omni Negate. It's not a Negate and Destroy, but it is an Omni Negate, which is huge. So if you overlay this guy into your Alimbertion or whatever, and they go to Ash, the Alimbertion search, you can just negate it. It's really, really powerful in that regard. Make a Final Sigma with him, because he's a tuner, then that Final Sigma is also an Omni Negate in addition to being a Towers, which is really, really cool. So this guy's better now than he's ever been, thanks to Circular, so we max out on that. We're playing 3 Addition and Subtraction. These guys are free special summons as long as there's a body already on the field. You don't want to have to normal these guys, but basically if there's already a body on either player's field, you can either add or subtract 1,000 from that respective monster and summon these guys out of your hands for free, which is really, really strong. It's, like I said, good going first or second. These guys actually help you do a small world bridge into Lava Golem, believe it or not. Which is something we'll talk about later, but it's a great going second tech as well. But yeah, the fact that these guys are free special summons is really important, because you don't really care that you're going to give your opponent's monster an attack boost or decrease one of your monsters. It's just an extra extender, because a lot of times people will try to negate the Circular, or when you send the Sigma to the graveyard off the Circular, they will DD Crow it, and you need that extra extender in hand to be able to do anything, and that's where these guys come up, so that's why we maxed out on all both copies of them. We're on 2 Sigma. Sigma can special summon himself as long as you don't control anything in the EMZ, and he can do it from your graveyard or your hand. So if you hard open this guy and you don't have a way to get to circular, you can still get a free body that way. So that's why we play 2. And if the one gets banished, you still want to have another one live. If you activate circular again on your next turn with already one of these in rotation, it wouldn't hurt to potentially send the other one, or you send one of the other one-ofs we play we'll talk about. But yeah, I think 2 is 100% correct, because you don't want to play 3 because it is kind of bricky, but you do want to play more than 1 in case it gets banished, or as a card that you would hard open to summon off of its inherent effect. So not a bad guy at all. He's also a tuner. The one-ofs is 1 multiplication and 1 Nabla. So these guys are used for very specific niche instances. So Nabla is the one that is going to, if you're going first, you'll search this off of Cyber's Wicked during the end of your combo, and on the following turn you can send this to the graveyard to give your access code or your final Sigma 2 attacks, which is usually going to be how you OTK, unless you go through Update Jammer to make access code, but this is another way to give access code to attacks. And then this guy gives your final Sigma 6,000 attack, and because he deals double battle damage, that's usually game off of that, so he can be pretty strong in that regard. The frustrating part about multiplication is that he is the only card that you cannot start a small world bridge off of in any way with this current build of the deck, unless we play something like Ghost Spell, which even then I don't know what you would get to after you use Ghost Spell as the bridge. But yeah, you can't start a small world bridge with him at all because he's an Earth and his defense is 2,000, which means he can't pair with Parallel Exceed by virtue of being a Cybers because they share the same defense. So it's kind of frustrating in that regard, but it's still worth it as a one-of. It's just the garnet for the deck, basically. 3 Parallel Exceed. This is our ultimate small world bridge. So him being a Cybers is usually the only thing he will share with your Mathmechs. So you can usually go a Mathmech in hand into a Parallel Exceed into any other Mathmech that you're missing, or you can go Parallel Exceed in your hand into any other Mathmech in deck to the Mathmech you're trying to see. So if you have this in your opening hand and you open Small World, you can go this guy into any other Mathmech and then get Circular, or however you need to do it, and then you can use him as the bridge like I already mentioned. And then if you actually get to use his effect, it can be pretty useful, because getting 2 level 4 bodies on the field means you can just overlay these guys into your Alan Burschen and get your search off, or however you want to do it. You can link them off if you're trying to go for Transcode or Cyber's Wicked or anything like that. I mean, these guys are Cybers and just extra bodies, so they're incredibly powerful. They can be bricky. Running 3 can be a little bit bricky, but because of the versatility with Small World and how consistent this deck is with ratios and all that, I feel pretty comfortable with 3. I've never bricked on it yet, but we'll see how that goes as we continue to play this deck. That's it for the main monsters. Now with the hand traps, we've got 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, and 3 DD Crow. These guys are, my most played hand traps in the format right now, and they can also be used as small world bridges. You can actually go small world using DD Crow, and then use Veiler as the bridge because they're both level 1s, and then have Veiler bridge into Circular because they're both light. So that's a pretty cool use of that. And then again, Ash you can use as a bridge to Lava Golem or something like that, On to the spells, we have the 3 Signet Mining. So the discard off of Signet Mining can hurt a lot, but again, it's a consistency tool. It's a way to get to your Circular. It's a way to get to an extender if you need it. Pitch that 1 Parallel Exceed out of your hand that you can't use if that's what comes to. If you open 2 small worlds, the other small world is dead because it's a once per turn. You can pitch that off of this to get a card you need. Just a consistency tool. Triple Small Worlds. So this is a card that I have a very mixed relationship with, as most people do. I pulled the one out of my box at Burst of Destiny when the card first came out, and I'm so glad I waited and didn't buy the other 2 copies at like $25 each, because I got them for like less than $1 out of the Megatins. But again, you are basically sacrificing total card count in your hand for incredible consistency. So and versatility. So you are going to lose a card in your hand to activate this. You're going to go -1 technically to get the card that you need, but you're always getting the exact card that you need. So it's sacrificing total card economy for consistency and for versatility. So you're always going to be able to find that circular. You're always going to be able to start that combo. But the fact that the card in your hand that you reveal gets banished face down is a bit of a drawback that I do dislike. But there's not really a better option to play in this slot for this specific deck. And this is one of the decks that takes the best advantage of Small World of any other deck that I've played. And as I've already mentioned, the ability to Small World for Lava Golem is absolutely just huge, going second in a deck that doesn't really use its normal summon unless it uses it for Diameter. I'm debating trying this in DDD because a lot of people have played this in DDD, and I've even talked about it earlier this year. But knowing DDD and knowing the kind of hands that I have, I can't really see myself justifying losing the extra card in my hand, and I think I may just stick with Piri Rice Map, because I think that even though you lose your life, you keep the other card in your hand, which you're probably going to need it after the end of a long combo. But I'll have to give it a try and to see how I like it. But I do like Small World a lot in this deck, except for hands where I open two of them. It really does suck. 3 Dark Ruler in the main, because we need board breaking cards this format. I do have a few problems with this as far as not being able to OTK through it, and so I would probably play 3 Droplet instead and cut these out of the main, but I only own 1 Droplet at the moment, so that's what we're on at the current moment. But I would definitely take out the Dark Rulers and play 3 Droplets if I had them. And then, of course, we've got the 1 Called by the Grave. I would also play 3 Talents, so if I had 3 copies of Droplets and Talents, I would drop the Dark Rulers altogether in the main and just play 3 of these. Talents just gives you an insane amount of value going second. If you get hand trapped, let's say your Sigma gets DD Crowed, just take control of your opponent's guy, and then you have free range to do whatever you want. You know, draw 2 cards, draw into another extender. I would definitely play 3 of this if I had it. And then we have the 1 Equation, because it is a fantastic extender, and it gives your cards some extra power, which they may need depending on the situation. This is also searchable off of Circular, so if you're going second, you'll usually search that out. And then I play 1 of each of the traps. So Super Factorial is literally just like Tri-Brigade Revolt. It's actually almost better, because while the activation of a Revolt gets you a Shurag, which banishes 1 card, this sends 2 cards to the graveyard, 1 from field and 1 from hand. Now, you have to be careful on which matchup you decide to do that off of, because obviously you're going to make Laplation and do that, and the Summon of Laplation will send the 1 card from their field and 1 card from their hand to the graveyard, which seems extremely powerful. But there was a Sword Soul matchup I had last weekend, and with the Sword Soul matchup, instead of making Laplation, I made Final Sigma off of this, because I knew that if I just sent like the 10E cards in their hand to the graveyard, they're just going to be able to activate them anyway, so it really doesn't give me any value to send that stuff to the graveyard. So it's kind of just a hit or miss, whatever you want to go for. But the fact that you can go for either one, you can Synchro with 3 materials or you can exceed with 3 materials, is really cool. There's an argument to be made about people running more than 1 copy of that, but 1 is usually fine, just like with Tri-Brigade Revolt. And then this card is really cool. The attack bonus is not incredibly important, but being able to, you know, pop this and destroy a card does come up a lot, especially if you're trying to get rid of a really problematic card on the field like a Floodgate. So that is it for the main deck. On to the extra deck. So we've got Linkuriboh, Angry Linkuriboh. We've got Disciple and Devotee, which are all part of a combo going first. You know, we with our first 2 guys we make them into these guys. This one pops this one, which gives us a draw and 2 tokens, and we can make Wicked, which can search the Nabla out of the deck, like we mentioned. And then we have Splash Mage, which I need to replace that one of my ultra rare copies. But Splash Mage lets you revive any Cybers, which is really important, because you can revive Alan Bershin if you need to as another body to link off. You don't have to revive a Cyberse monster with a level. It can be any Cyberse monster, which I think is pretty cool. And then another thing that's really cool about Splash Mage is that it's a water. So with Access Code, you have to banish monsters, link monsters from your graveyard with different attributes. And Splash Mage being the only water means that we pretty much have a very diverse extra deck in terms of attributes. You know, we got Dark, Light, Earth, Water, and we got Wind with Update Jammer. which we usually use to make transcode talker and then access code talker to get that double attacking part in there. We've got IP for going first, which lets us link it with the Cyberus Wicked to make Appaloosa. Some people will use that to make Avramax, but I think Appaloosa is a little bit stronger. We've got the one transcode, which lets you link up into access code, and is honestly pretty strong on its own too. Like, don't discount this guy. Plus, he's an earth attribute, which again gets you a different attribute in the graveyard. We got Heat Soul, which are our fire attribute. Heat Soul is kind of your backup plan. If you know you're going to end subpar and you just want to take some damage to draw some cards, that's kind of your backup plan there. I haven't really gotten into this guy. I feel like if I go into this guy, I'm probably losing, but he's there as an option. The one Appaloosa, it can be part of our going first end board. It can be what we link IP into. Generally is a pretty good going first option, especially when you have this backed up by the Superfractorial. It's very similar to a Tri-Brigade end board, but a little bit stronger because of how the Laplacian is going to send multiple cards to the graveyard. We've got the one access code talker, obviously, because we need that to OTK with, and it's very, very strong in this deck. We've got 2 Alimbertian and 1 Laplacian. Yes, I don't have the original secret rares. Go cry about it. So Alimbertian, of course, having the search is really important because you use that as part of your initial combo. And then Laplacian, like I said, is only able to be made with 3 materials, but you almost always only ever make it with Superfractorial and get that send 2 cards to the graveyard, which is pretty strong. Or if your opponent has a back row, you can send 3 cards to the graveyard because you'll have all 3 materials on this guy, which is pretty important. And then obviously the one last card in the extra deck is the Final Sigma himself. Some people don't play this guy at all. Some people play the Arrival Cyber Signister, which I haven't really tried in the deck, to be fair. But yeah, this guy is awesome. He's one of my favorite Synchro monsters in terms of design. I kind of wish for a level 12 that he had a little bit more attack. If he was like a 35 or a 4K, he would be a lot better, because I actually had a lot of situations recently where this guy just got ran over. Like there was a couple of hero matchups where he just got attacked over because he wasn't big enough, and you had like the Sunrise boosting like the DPE and all the other guys to over 3,000. So yeah, he just got ran over, but the amount of protection he has is great. The double battle damage is huge. I think it was a Sword Soul player that battled into this guy a couple times to get his bodies off the board to trigger other effects, and the amount of damage he took was absolutely insane off of that. So this dude's pretty cool. Not everybody plays him, but I like him a lot. We'll talk about the side deck really quick. So I think I like the side deck at the moment, but there may be some things I would change. I'm not really sure yet. I think I need to play this deck more before I decide as far as that goes. But triple Lava Golem I think is mandatory. You can Small World Bridge for it, as I've said a million times, and the fact that this deck doesn't exclusively use this normal summon means that this is a great way to deal with problematic stuff on your opponent's board if you're going second. Usually a lot of Sword Soul decks now will only end on like 2 guys. You got triple Nibiru. There's a lot of decks that still get punished by this, so I want to have it as an option. There is the triple Twin Twisters, because I think back row is still so critical to have removal for that against stuff like Mystic Mind and the Labyrinth deck and the Runic deck, and even like Eldritch is still kind of hanging around in the format occasionally as a rogue deck. We've got 3 evenly matched. And then I'm still on 3 D-Barrier to be able to call Fusion against Tier Elements, or call Exceeds against Splight, or call Fusion against Despia, call Synchro against Sword Soul. It's pretty versatile. It doesn't really hurt us too much. Calling Exceeds against this deck hurts a little bit, but we can still basically play like a mono Link deck and be fine. So alright guys, that is going to do it for this deck profile. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys next time.